Go out there and shine, and one day you'll be the anchor. So looking forward to you tomorrow. Oh, that was written. But okay, let me go in here. I'm a little bit off kilter at the moment. All right, let's see.
Oh, good.
Let's see. Michael Muir, your countrymate, says Uranus moves into Taurus. I've been preparing my whole life for this. I am ready. I have no idea what that means, but I love my
No. Please explain.
Yeah, I don't know any of these terms. Let's see if it's up yet. Yep, we got 9 people in the house. Let me turn my volume down. Okay. Yeah, 11 people and counting. Hello, Kate Amarego, Brendan RB, Yvonne down in Tasmania, Wendy Kirkwood, Amanda Summer, Kendra Lane, Delia Flores, East Bay, California, and Linda Caraway right down the road here. My sister that lives down on the South Shore. All righty. Hello, everybody. We're going to roll the show out in just a second. If these shows resonate with you, please share. That's how we keep this thing going. Thank you for the continued love, support, and contributions. That's how we keep this thing going. Until we get to the point, I hope very soon, where we'll have our own independent site with multiple channels available on a handheld app. Hello, Maria Redmond. So we have a special show today with a special lady. She's hello, Sherry Whiting, Ontario, Canada. Rosie Neal's in the house. So we have a beautiful divine feminine with us from Adelaide, South Australia. A good friend of my partner. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Good friend of my partner, Morgan Lee. There's a group of people that went to a school over there when I met Morgan about three plus years ago. And so what was it? Transpersonal
counseling.
Transpersonal counseling. Yeah. So and y'all kind of have stuck together and a lot of good friendships. So let me give a warm welcome to Susanna Saccardo, Adelaide, South Australia. Welcome to Soul Speaks 5D. Let me give you a little backdrop on Susanna. You're very welcome. Thank you for coming and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. She is a transpersonal counselor. She teaches mindfulness and meditation to children and adults, and she's the author of a book called Dating Without an Agenda.
Yeah,
that's a good title. Also had a dating business called The Owl and the Pussycat.
Yeah,
and co-facilitated linking singles, which was organizing events for single people to socialize. She's also a massage therapist for over 20 years, and for the last 5 of those, did a treatment called Raindrop therapy. It's a beautiful vibrational healing treatment using 9 essential oils that are synergetically chosen from the Young Living Oils range. Okay, so you're going to have some explaining to do. Hello, Nick. How you doing? Geraldine, BP Jewel, Monica Peterson, Susan Hoffman. So you know what the big question is. Anyone that's watched the show, 800, 900 episodes knows. We need to know, when did you wake up and how did it happen?
Okay, let's start at the beginning. So over 20 years ago, went through very dark stage in my life, just from my childhood, as most of us experience, a lot of abuse and so on. And I had started receiving massages from a very switched on man, and he would be able to pick things up from me energetically when he would be massaging. And that kind of opened up a couple of conversations with us. And I ended up speaking with him one day because I was just in such a dark space. I didn't know how to get myself out of it. And he started up the conversation about, having to go within and starting to learn about who I really am. And that sort of set the chain of events about, learning about myself by doing various, personal development courses. And also that is how I got into becoming a massage therapist. So he was kind of my inspiration for that. And he also became my teacher. So, once I got into learning about the body and then starting to understand how the mind-body connection happens, and then the next step from that was the spiritual awareness. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell, and that was more than 20 years ago.
So would you say that you're an energy worker, energy practitioner?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I found that as I developed my massaging techniques, often what would happen for me is, as I was massaging people, I would be able to tune into things for them energetically, and often I would receive messages for them. However, what I did find was that sometimes my sharing those messages received scared people off, because sometimes people would feel a bit uneasy because they felt I was reading their mind, which I wasn't. But that can be scary for people if they feel like you're tapping into their minds. So as I got further into my massage practice, I shared those messages less and less. And what I ended up doing is I would sing to my clients while I was working on them.
You would sing to them?
Yeah.
And would you sing anything specific, or just whatever came?
No, I would always have some of my favorite music going on in the background, and I would just sing whatever I was listening to. But I use that with an intention of channeling the vibration of that energy of that song through my hands into the physical body, and overall people loved it.
Yeah,
I never got told to shut up, put it that way.
So I mean, in your practice, is it your abilities or your skill always with the hands-on, or do you also do otherwise?
Look, until I started the transpersonal counselling course, I was always doing body work. But I'm getting a bit on now, and I was finding that physically I wasn't able to continue, and that was part of the reason of taking the direction of the transpersonal counselling. So now I work one-on-one with people, and predominantly it's in the counselling arena.
Yeah, and you work with children as well as adults. Yeah, and
I do. Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to be. We have a lot. Obviously, we have a lot of practitioners on the show, and not a whole lot of them have mentioned working with children. What's that like, and how long have you been doing that?
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's incredibly rewarding, because children are so open and in the moment, and willing to try lots of things. So I've been doing it for off and on for approximately about 18 months. And there's a whole lot of practices that I do with them, from making glitter jars where they use the glitter to focus on, and that's how they get that stillness of the mind. And I might use a singing bowl, and we'll listen to the sound of the singing bowl until they can't hear it anymore. And just sort of playful things, and they're very willing.
And did you come up with these methods just through your intuition and communion with infinite intelligence, or did you learn this through instruction?
I'd say a combination. I've tried lots of different things in my time, and was a musician for a while, and so I learnt a lot about the benefits of sound, and using sound as healing. So it was a little bit of just exploring what's out there as far as mindfulness goes, and then combining it with things that I've just learnt over the years.
Yeah,
and some of it is
and so, like, in terms of, like, I love asking people this question. I was just telling you before we came on the air that I just got hit with some energy just half an hour ago, and I don't know what it is. I have a bit of a feeling, but I'm not quite sure. Do you get hit with energetic waves? Do you get triggered by people? I mean, a lot of people look at practitioners like, oh, they got it made, they don't have to worry about it.
Oh no.
And so and so how do you handle your own stuff? I mean,
Yeah,
how do you get through it and align and integrate and process through this stuff?
Fantastic question. Yeah, physically what happens for me is that I'll get a ringing in one of my ears, and at the moment, so this morning it's hitting my left ear. And often what I find is that when we have these energetic waves, a lot of my old shit will come to the surface. So I'll start to feel very low emotionally. And so when that happens for me, I tend to retreat. I tend to go into myself, and I will just spend a lot of time just in meditation. And by that, I mean the meditation that I'm into and that I teach is about not engaging with the story. So it's just being present. Yeah, being present to thoughts, being present to feeling, and just being mindful of not getting caught up in the story and just bringing it back to the silence. And I just repeat that over and over. Now, depending on the time, sometimes I can come out of it really quickly, 5 minutes to an hour. And what I'm finding at the moment is I've been in this lull for about a week.
Oh, right now. You're talking about right now.
I've been going through it for about a week. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you always find out what it was, or do you just does the energy sometimes just pass through without even knowing what it was?
Yeah, sometimes it just passes through, but I'm a bit inquisitive, so I always like to know, why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. So more often than not, if I just keep digging, I'll get to the bottom of what it is, what the pattern of thought is, or where it's coming from. There's lots of different processes that I'll use. Some that I learned when I was doing transpersonal counselling. Some from your beautiful missus. She's taught me some incredible processes, so I'll use those. And Nick DiMartino, he and I, talk constantly, and we're always supporting one another on how to discover, what the underlying emotion is.
Yeah. Now, so you kind of expanded when you went through this transpersonal counseling courses. Have you seen an expansion in your own life, like in terms of manifestation, in terms of what you're attracting to your energy field in that time?
Yeah, look, one of the things that I did find was really interesting, because when we were doing the studies, obviously any of the processes that we were learning, we had to apply to self, and we were sharing these experiences amongst the students. And so really we were in session 3 or 4 times a week, and that's a lot of work. And so what I found happened quite naturally is that I had certain addictions and certain vices when I started that course. And what I found is it wasn't like an intention. It wasn't something that I said, oh, I want to give that up. I kind of found that things just left me. Yeah. So and that's often what I'll say to people that I'm working with, is just do the work. Do the work, about learning about self, and a lot of those things that trip us up or create suffering, and that will drop away.
Yeah. Now people come into this, or at least in what I do, they come in the door and they seem to either have 1, 2, or 3 things involved, maybe 2 of the 3 or 1 of the 3, all 3, and that would be like a galactic connection, I would say like an angelic or divine essence connection, and or they're very organic. You seem, I don't know if I'm right about this, but you seem to be very organic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you find that, or did you have any type of galactic or a divine essence type of, because they're just different faces of the universe, whether it's organic or not. Do you have any type of connection to or relation to that type of thing, or is it all organic?
Yeah, look, I'd have to say predominantly it's organic. However, I'll have the galactic stuff happen, but it happens spontaneously. I know that when I was working with Morgan and some of the other girls, we would do the proxy sessions, and whenever I was being proxy for someone, I would find that I was able to connect, but I don't know what it was or who it was, but I would just find that I would, my voice would change, and I would just receive information. But it's not something that I've pursued.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I've really expanded on, and I don't really know why.
Yeah. But I mean, but naturally, you seem to be very organic. I mean, do you, is this just, and I've met people like this where they don't even put a face to anything. It's just their natural rhythm. They don't even, for instance, if I said to you, do you have a special relationship with Mother Earth or trees or plants? I mean,
the beach. Yeah.
The beach.
The beach is my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an organic, connection. Now, do you, and I'm just curious, this is what we do. So, when you're going into self, do you reach out to the external? Do you go to the beach? Do you reach out to things outside of yourself? And not that they are, but I mean, I talk to trees, so I mean, it's not always just me on my own. Sometimes I reach out to other things. Do you do that type of thing, or what type of?
I'd say that most times I'll do something different. So, but predominantly I connect with source or light, and then I let go of anything that I know myself to already be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I disengage with who I know myself to be and just take it back to the nothingness.
Yeah. And what, and that's it. Yeah. And what is it like to go through this transition we call ascension and the expansions and contractions? Being in a relationship, is it a lot of people talk about the mirrors being very challenging, bringing out the shadows and that type of thing, learning not to project and that type of thing. Have you gained anything substantial from that?
Look, that's just it's just an ongoing, but it certainly helps to have someone who is in alignment with that way of being. So yes, we're definitely aware of the mirrors and the projection, and so we have lots of dialogue around that, about what's mine and what's his, and so definitely that's helped a lot. Really at the end of the day, it is about taking responsibility for what you see in your partner, but then not just in your partner, but then anybody that you come into contact with. And so if there is a trigger or whatever, it's always looking at it from that point of view of, well, what part of that is within me.
Yeah Which I guess ultimately all of it is.
Exactly.
Whether we want to admit it or not.
I know. I wasn't really happy about that when I first learned that concept.
Right. Yeah, that was a tough one to learn. Now, do you have any young people around you? Any kids? Are you you interact with kids in your practice?
I interact with children. Yeah. And where I'm living at the moment, so I'm living with my brother and his wife, and they have grandchildren. So I spend time with a little 2.5-year-old and another niece of mine, and she's 2. So that's sort of as far as my family goes. I'm not actually working with children as such at the moment.
Mm-hmm. But I was just curious as to what your take was on in your experiences with these young people. Especially if you're approaching it as a practice with both adults and children or young people. Do you see, or what kind of differences do you see in the 2 different categories?
Yeah, well, I think that they're very switched on. They're coming in with their own spiritual intelligence. And I guess where I'm curious, or where what I observe is what happens with people who are interacting with these children, who are strictly interacting with them from the 3D concept, and then the conflict, or the how it affects that child. So yeah, I will do my best in imparting new ways of dealing with those children, so that we're not damaging them. Because I mean, predominantly a lot of our I call it glitches in our system have occurred from our childhood.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm very, very mindful about how we speak to children, and how we can encourage them to be, who they've come to be, and support them in that direction. Guide them towards what they're naturally good at.
Yeah, somebody mentioned on an earlier show today that there is, it's the first time I've really heard this, that there are a lot of young people that are suffering from anxiety and stress.
I know.
And
Yeah,
I don't.
they're saying a lot of young children are already on antidepressants. I mean, that just alarms me. It's it bothers me, because unfortunately we're in that society where it's just that quick fix. And what I want to see, I mean, is to educate our educators, our teachers, on how to work with the children, and to bring these programs into schools, so that we are enhancing them, rather than something presenting itself, and then we look for the quickest way to suppress that behavior.
Yeah, I just thought it just kind of struck me, and I wondered, was it the propaganda or the agenda of medicating these kids to keep them shut down, or is there any more or less of that anxiety in the adolescents than they were in my day, or any other era?
Yeah, well, that's always a good question, because I'm not 100% sure if it was as prominent back in our day. I mean, the thing now with our social media, we're more aware of it because people are talking about it, and so you get to see what's going on. But yeah, I do think that part of it is the propaganda, and just to keep people suppressed and keep children suppressed. The thing is that these are wise souls coming through, and they are coming through with information and whatnot. So I guess there's that element of trying to keep that under wraps, but I'll do whatever I can to bring it out.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few of them that no matter what happens, they can't keep them under wraps. They seem to be, that's you see a lot of that going on, or I do from the chair I'm sitting in. And now you talk about taking responsibility. I'll try to equate everything to a common denominators, right? And for all of us, I mean, we all have these many points of separation, or at least seemingly the separation. We know it's not there. What do you mean by take responsibility? Because that sounds like something each and every one of us would apply to each and every one of us.
Yeah. So I guess from a counseling point of view, often what happens when a client comes in is the first thing that they'll do is they'll talk about an issue being out there. So for example, they might come in and let's say talk about their spouse, and they'll make it about, that person, he did, she did. So when I talk about responsibility, and that everything outside of us is mirroring what I call a glitch in the system, I always, my approach is always to take it back to the client. So, I'll have the approach of, you're sitting in front of me at the moment, and my job is to work with you so that we get you back to your center and to your inner peace. It's not actually outside of you. The only reason that person is there is to show you where that glitch is in your system. So often I'll refer to it, as a computer. So if your computer has a virus or a glitch, then it's not going to run properly. So if you can run an antivirus, it'll eliminate that glitch. And so that's my job as a counsellor. So yeah, I always make it very clear with my clients and also anyone that I interact with that I'm not interested in, once again, getting into the story about what's happened, outside. It's where is that within you, and what can we do to to heal that glitch.
Yeah, and so it must be difficult, I would think. I think all of us at one time or another, if not still, have difficulty in accepting that we're responsible for things that have happened to us. How do you bring a client to the point of understanding that that is the case? That putting stuff up in front of us.
I think that it always boils back down to our personal experience. So with some of the techniques that I use in counselling, so a lot of the counselling that I do is done in an altered state or in a meditative state, and so we will go in and go back to a particular scenario, right? Identify what the pain is, or what the suffering is, or what the emotion is, and then we will recreate it. And then have an experience in this altered state in the new creation. And so then what happens is the outer reality will then mirror that shift. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I guess too, you would I guess, because I never thought about it until I started working with Morgan, how these things reoccur and they loop. If they go unaddressed, or we don't take responsibility for them. I just find that find that I'm not a practitioner, but I find that must be a challenge. When if something's active in your energy field, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're acting the way that people are acting towards you. It just means that it's active and unresolved within yourself, right?
Exactly.
I would love to sit in on many sessions and hear how people handle that, because that's a big deal. You hear a lot of people say, hey, how can I, with these major traumas that happen to them, how can I be responsible for that? And I guess maybe a big part of that we could segue into this is how important is it, how much of your practice is it in terms of incarnations, or even, incarnations prior to this particular one now. I mean, how important is that, the ancestral stuff?
Yeah, look, definitely. If once again, every session is different, and I always allow the client to guide me as to where I take them. So and that will depend on the language that they're giving me in their altered state. So if I need to go to the ancestral stuff, I will. But overall, my take on it is that it's not tit for tat. It's not about if someone's being vindictive towards you, that you're a vindictive person. What we'll do is we'll explore, where in your life have you experienced that? So where was that seed planted? So it might be something that happened, 30 years ago or 10 years ago. So we will go back to an experience that the client remembers, and we will work with that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So you say, okay, when's the first time you felt this, or
when was a time? Because sometimes that a time, whatever that memory is, then might link to something else. And often what happens is that when we start the inquiry, and where we end up is quite different. And that, like I said, I'm led by what the client is saying. That's where our training comes into it. So it depends on what words the client is giving me. I'm trained in where to take it. So we might go back to ancestral stuff. We might go to the future. We might work with the inner child. We might work with the higher self. So each time is different. And yeah, it's fascinating. Each client is just, you know, it just blows me away with, you know, what the outcome of it can be. And sometimes they can have a shift after one session.
Wow. Yeah, that's very true. Especially with the way the energies are supporting us now. And how does the whole masculine energy, feminine energy play into your practice? How does that come out and come into play with your clients?
That's a good question.
I mean, do you have, I mean, I would think you would have women come in that have you know, an axe to grind with the masculine. You've got men that come in with an axe to grind, whether they're conscious of it or not, with the feminine, that type of thing. Because we all know that there's the resolution or the balance of those two things that's so important.
Yeah.
But we're also blinded by the stories that you don't focus on, that you were mentioning, and the past traumas and such, and possibly even the ancestral stuff. But does that come into, or do you handle it a different way?
Yeah. I can't say I really focus on it, whether you know it's a masculine or feminine energy. I think, you know, going back to what we were saying earlier, just because, you know, my nature and the way that I work is very organic. I guess that's just the approach I have with each person, is that each session is very organic, and I don't focus on, you know, is it masculine, is it feminine that's out of balance. So I kind of just allow it to play out. Yeah.
It sounds like you let them, you kind of just open the door and they take it from there.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I guess I'm just guiding them as to, you know, maybe which door to open. You know, sometimes that needs a little bit of an encouragement or a bit of a push. You know, they might not be, might not even know that door exists, if that makes sense. So once again, it depends on the language that I'm hearing. So yeah.
And I just have to guess too, it sounds like that each one of these clients for you is different because you're organic and pretty much
that's right.
Spontaneous.
Yes, I never know what's going to happen, and I'm always, you know, pleasantly surprised as where it goes.
Yeah,
as to where it goes.
I can relate to your way of doing things for sure.
Yeah. As an example, you know, I was working with a client, and you know, it was about trust, and you know, we went and did an inquiry, and we kind of went into some things that had happened as a child. But as we kept, you know, digging or looking under things, it ended up being her as a teenager who was jumping up and down and going, you know, I want a voice. And so we worked with that, and it was, you know, it was amazing, because I had no idea that that's where we're going to go. And that's what I love about this work. It really, I'm just, you know, holding the space and just giving suggestions as to, why don't you look under that rock? You know, you haven't looked under that rock yet. Let's just go and have a look over there and see what we find. And that's where the surprises come, not just for myself, but definitely for the client.
Now, are you seeing an elevation or a difference in where people were at when you started doing this type of work, as opposed to where it stands today? Are people, are they stronger? Are they more expanded? I mean, in general?
Yeah, I'm finding the expansion is happening faster, and I believe that's because, you know, the consciousness is expanding on the planet, and so as consciousness expands, then people are actually able to tap into that expansion faster. So they don't necessarily have to have done 20 years of, you know, spiritual exploration to tap into, say, you know, where I'm vibrating. It's like they can just, you know, come in fresh and just tap into it with the right, you know, with the guidance.
Yeah. And then we had a lady on about 3 weeks ago, Sheila Sen, who started doing body work. Her father was a Bengali and was very, you know, he was a doctor. And when she was a little girl, she would give him massages, right? And because I asked her, I said, how do you connect? How do you meditate? And she said, there's two ways: gardening and when I put my hands on someone's body, because that's what she does. So having said that, it seems like the body, as this thing has progressed, especially in the last few months, the body is really starting to become a factor in terms of identification, in terms of communication. And being that you've worked with the body for so long, what's your perspective on that? How's that going? Are people more in tune with their body? Are you more in tune with your body? I mean, are you able to hear clear with more clarity the messages from your body and also what you observe in your clients?
Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to find the right words. So I guess the body is becoming clearer as far as now just give me a moment, I'm just trying to think of the word. It's like the mouthpiece, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So so I mean, it might be old school information, but obviously our bodies are the vehicle for the expansion of energy. And so I think people are becoming more and more aware of that connection, as opposed to, say, 10, 15 years ago. People are becoming more and more aware that the body is constantly giving us messages about what is going on energetically.
Yeah.
And so I'm finding that people are more open to that idea. So whenever anything is going on in the body, if we look at it closely enough, we can find that connection emotionally and spiritually.
And I guess sometimes, or correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you can elaborate on it, but with these energies coming in, however that occurs, because there's too many people acknowledging it every day, call it ascension symptoms or ascension flu or whatever it may be. So are some of these signals from the body, obviously some are attributed to shadows or traumas or whatever, things that the client's unaware of or we're unaware of, and then are some attributed to the collective energy, and I guess are the body's telling us the difference? I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm just trying.
Yeah, definitely. So the way I see it is, because the body is more connected to the 3D vibration. So often it takes the body longer to catch up with what the shifts are energetically. And so, we can get a symptom in the body that is just passing through. And so it might just require a little bit of attention or a little bit of a rub, and we can move that energy through. But if it's a bigger symptom, then, through that exploration, we might find that it's, trauma from the past, or, we might just be tapping into the collective pain, because we are all one. So, so you might be experiencing a shift in the body, but it might not necessarily be just your own pain. It might be a collective pain. And then, once again, then there are lots of different processes that, we can take on to shift that energy.
Yeah. And you use music in for yourself, I'm sure, and then also with your clients. Do you use any other tools like crystals or anything like that? I mean, I'm just curious.
I do use crystals, but for me, sound is a much more powerful vibration. I guess it depends on what kind of healing modality you're natural at. So for me, I'm kinesthetic and I'm auditory. So the sound works for me. I will often hold a crystal if I'm meditating, but it's more about just holding something in a way of grounding myself or something to focus on. Whereas, I know other people can actually tune into the energy of a crystal and work with that. But for me, it's sound. because I can feel the sound in my body in different places depending on what I'm listening to.
And are you still at the point where you put your hands on somebody, you're picking stuff up like you were when you started it?
I guess I haven't done a lot of body work of late. I do the raindrop therapy from time to time. That's about as much body work as I do.
Now, what is the raindrop therapy? I'm curious. I've
Yeah,
never heard of it.
it's awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful technique. So it's using 9 oils, and these oils are chosen synergistically. So that means that each oil supports the next, and basically it's applied to the client's body, so from the base of the spine to the base of the neck, and the oils are dropped onto the body from a distance, and so they've got to fall through the person's aura, and they hit the body like a raindrop. That's where the name comes from, and it was actually derived from the Navajo Indians. And so they use these essential oils to heal the body. And it's just a beautiful healing technique. The smells are absolutely divine, and I believe that we're moving towards vibrational energy healing. So using, once again, sound, smells, plants, and this particular technique, at the end of it, you have peppermint oil applied to the back, and there's a technique called feathering. So you feather the oil into the body. So it's just this beautiful, healing, nurturing therapy. So the peppermint is applied at the end. The person's wrapped in a beautiful hot, wet towel, and then they get to just lie there and just absorb all of that wonderful vibration of these oils.
That sounds very interesting. Now,
yeah.
Given the fact that you're so connected to sound and that you sing, do you see an expansion with that? There's people that have come on the show, and especially the last few weeks, have been talking about that, and also exemplifying that through toning, through chanting, light language, and these, I don't want to say otherworldly, but these noises or tones or sounds, vibrational sounds coming out of their throat chakra that are, like you said earlier, when you proxy, your voice changes. Are you seeing that coming more?
Look, I'm noticing even with different emails and information that's coming through connected to sound. Like I've actually just signed up for a program, and so where they're using the vibration of your voice and sound for losing weight. So I think because we're energetic beings, so we're vibrational beings. I think that's why sound is such a great healing tool, because it's, you can change your own energy by listening to sound or by expressing sound. I know toning, or chanting is a fantastic vibrational tool, and I think one of the reasons why it's so powerful is that when you're focusing on creating a sound or taking a sound in, you're stilling the mind, or you're disengaging from the constant thoughts that are coming in. So it gives you a break from that thought process that happens. And when we can have a rest from all of those incessant thoughts, that's when we can tap into spirit and, higher intelligence or higher information. Yeah. And so, I just think sound is just a really wonderful tool, and it's universal. It doesn't matter where you're from. You can sing to a baby and have an effect. I found it.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, well, I've worked with aged care with people who have got dementia, and I've used sound. And once again, it's just giving people something else to focus on, to give that brain a rest.
Yeah. And I said earlier that quite a few practitioners have come on in the last few weeks talking about the number of people in their practice that were coming to them, new people that were waking up. Now, have you experienced that? And whether you have or you haven't, what would you tell somebody who's just coming to you now and saying, hey, I'm just waking up. I just had a Kundalini experience. I saw my dead grandmother last night in my room. She told me this, she told me that. Are you seeing that out there? And like I said, whether or not you are, what advice do you give these people, or would you give them?
Oh, look, I'm always excited when I hear that. And, the way I understand it is, once again, because consciousness is shifting and expanding, and because we're all connected, it has to affect the whole. And so what I'm finding is a lot of young people that I know, say the 25 to 35 age bracket. And so just in general conversation, they'll start speaking to me about numerology, or they'll start speaking to me about seeing spirit or seeing ghosts. And so that opens up a whole conversation. So I can just then tap into, my own experience, my own journey, and just encourage them. Because I'd say 10, 15 years ago, we weren't encouraged. If we had these kind of conversations, let's say 10, 15 years ago, you were thought of as a freaking crackpot or whatever. So I'm finding that these conversations are becoming more mainstream, more acceptable. People are becoming more open to, understanding and knowing that there's more to us than just this, this physical being. We're multi-layered, and it's very exciting. It's, to tap into these higher dimensions. And I think
keep going.
Well, I think it's kind of sad, when I see people who are traveling through life and think that all that there is to us is this physical being, and our thoughts. And so I'm always excited to speak to people who, you can see are waking up, and that excitement of knowing that, there are other dimensions that we can tap into, and a higher presence that we can tap into to guide us and assist us, and that we're not on our own. We have this beautiful, loving intelligence that we can tap into, and it's very exciting.
What do you think, if you had to put your finger on one, what do you think people's greatest fear is? I mean, just like in your practice. I mean, is there a one that stands out?
Yeah, I think judgment is massive. Judgment from others and judgment of self is probably the number one thing that I experience or see in people.
Yeah,
that's where a lot of that suffering comes from.
Yeah, that's particularly the self-judgment. Obviously, the self-judgment is the root of it. How do you get somebody to start lessening that? Because that's another touchy subject. That's just like the subject of hey, I didn't do it to myself. Somebody did it to me. I was perpetrated, and how am I responsible for that? But I mean, that's another one. That judgment, self-judgment, is self-admission. It's pure vulnerability. I mean, it's not an easy road. How do you approach that?
Yeah, look, in my very simplistic way of doing things, I always take it back to, that when you're born and you're this beautiful little baby, you've come in as a blank slate, is what I like to call it. This pure bundle of joy. So I always take people back there, and then what happens from that point on. So from that point on, the judgments come. They come from the way we're handled, by our parents and family, and then it expands into society, school, teachers, our friends and so on. And so I always take it back to that. So, the judgment came in from somewhere, something. And so we're going to go back there and locate where that seed was planted. And we're going to pull that seed out and put in a beautiful new plant and let that blossom. Yeah.
So you essentially you take them back to the purity, to the innocence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
To the untainted. Yeah. And then you're saying, hey, this is where it started, or this was one place that it was obvious. That's not you. That's not even real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And, look, I find that, I'm able to do that most of the time with anybody I meet or anybody that I see, including rapists and murderers, that you'll see on TV or whatever, that I have that ability to stand back and say, well, okay, that's how it appears to us that, this person is A, B, and C. But if we actually go in and look at this person's past and history, 99% of the time you're going to find that there's been some abuse or something that's happened to that person for them to, develop into this being that is not so nice.
Yeah, very true.
So I don't engage. I don't like to engage. I don't encourage people to engage in gossip or judgment. So if I'm sitting with people and they get into that realm, I always do my best to bring it back and go, well, hang on a minute, we're all wounded souls at some level.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess one thing we're learning too is we can love unconditionally and say no and walk away. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I was having this conversation just last night with a couple of women, as they're expanding. And I think this is another thing that, we experience as we expand. Sometimes people who've been in our life for a very long time start to fall away, or we become at discord with them. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't love them. Yeah. But I was encouraging some women last night. I just said, it's not that you don't love them. You just love them from a distance. You don't have to break bread with everybody. You don't have to sit around and engage with everybody, but just do it from a distance. We've got to look after our energy at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a new aspect to this is that whole, because it used to be people would say, why aren't you talking to me? Or why did you do this? And I find myself one way or the other telling people, it's none of your business, first of all. Who are you? Yeah. But who are you to assume my intentions? How do you know what's going on in my life? And if I've said no in a very nice way, why do you keep coming back? I mean, I don't say that, but I'm thinking that to myself. That's got to be a prevalent energy, as Morgan and so many others have forecasted, rightfully so, and talked about for months and even years, that great divide that's occurred now. Not just within ourselves, but when we're seeing out there. But yeah, I think that's something that we're, like everything else, it's a work in process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah. I'm not really sure how that's going to all play out, but my intention is always, you've got to look after yourself, your energy, and there's going to be some people that you're going to lose along the way, and that's fine. So be it.
To thine own self.
Wish them well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I like this comment. Too much to even explain or even begin to discuss. Yeah. That's the whole thing. You open up that can of worms, and you're right back in that old 3D, that time loop. It seemed like it was a timeless loop, but it wasn't a timeless loop. We just need to learn to have enough self-respect and self-love to disengage. Yeah. So, how do people find you? Let me ask you this first. Do you work with people online?
I can do. I prefer being in a room with someone. I think that ties in once again to my being very organic. There's
Yes.
lots that I gain from being face to face with someone in a room. I have done a couple of sessions online. It's just not my preference, but I'm very open to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just asking too for the people that are watching the live and also the replay. And we do have a pretty good crowd in Adelaide. The last time I checked, it was I want to say a couple hundred people, and
Awesome.
not a lot of them. I mean, certainly a good amount of them know Morgan, but there's always been popping in on the shows. I see it all the time, and I don't know why that is. It's just the energy at work, I guess. I don't know. But so how do people find you? Where can they find you? Because I know there's going to be some interest.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So I have a Facebook page called Susanna's Transpersonal Counselling. So you can message me there, or just message me at Susanna Saccardo on Facebook. I'm quite happy to leave my mobile on this recording, if that's cool.
That's fine with you. You can actually put the links up for both your pages, and if you want to put your phone number up, that's brave.
Yeah.
But you know, you got to trust, right? You got to trust.
I am a bit trusting. Sometimes I'm a bit too trusting, but that's okay.
Well, I think, I think that's also being rewarded now. I think,
absolutely.
all that the quote unquote impasse gave it up for is now coming back to him, and really for all of us. So, if you would put it up in the comments, because usually people.
And I'm also happy to go. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, you go. No, there's a lag. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, I'm also happy to go to the client's home, which I often do. So if that works for people, within a certain radius. I'm not going to drive to Melbourne to go see someone, but within a certain radius of where I'm living, I'm happy to go to people's home if that works better for them.
Well, I guess Kauai's out of the question then.
Sorry.
So I guess
hey, you never know.
You never know. That's right.
You never know. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it. It was a great way to end the day on the broadcast for the day. Susanna Saccardo, thank you for honoring us with your presence. Sharing space with us. And I'm really happy that I got to meet you. I know I'll get to meet you in the flesh one day, whenever I get down in time.
Yeah, sounds great. You're always welcome. Australia's an awesome place. You've got to put it on your bucket list.
Once I get there, I'm not leaving.
Yeah, probably.
unless it's a holiday with Morgan or something, but that's it. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you later. See everybody tomorrow. We got some more shows lined up. You take care.
Awesome. Thank you.